We wanted to understand why should we do what we are trying to do. We figured out that there is this element of detached attachment which the consumers don't get nowadays. They want to be part of a societal engagement which also gives them a lot of freedom and a lot of privacy as well. When we started off doing personalization, we were thinking of profiling people against a specific set of nuance. What we didn't understand at that point in time is the fact that behaviors change. It changes every season, it changes every year, it changes over a catastrophic occurrence like that of COVID. It changes drastically.
Sid, welcome to the Yellow Couch.
Thank you, and my pleasure. Thanks for calling.
It's a pleasure to have you here. I know you as my tennis buddy, techie guy who has experience working in the luxury products industry. If you had to introduce yourself, what would you say?
Well, I would say that I've been doing technology all right for the last 20 odd years, but I've learned the hard way what technology does for augmenting business.
Why do you say the hard way?
Well, as a true techie, you would always, think of taking technology first in your approach wherever you would, start. And obviously, being high on passion in whatever, including tennis is what you just said. I was overtly passionate in the way I looked at technology before I realized that it ideally should be for augmenting business, almost like a catalyst does when it comes to augmenting compounds.
So you're saying too much of a tech lens without a business lens?
Well,
doesn't create a balanced approach?
I think we should try and understand what and how much and to what degree of technology can augment the business that you are in, and what is that magic formula which can actually make a business win. Be it in AI, be it in UX, be it in the way you ideate products, be it in the way you try and understand the business purpose around the concept that you're taking live. I think everything has to gel within the scheme of things to create that winning formula. Technology, yes, plays a very big role, but it shouldn't really be an overdose of technology beyond what the business wants. And that's, if you want me to explain my career growth and what I've been doing for the last 20 years, I think I'm a techie for businesses and for augmenting the right business metrics, so to say.
And for a techie to actually have a measured approach to technology is actually a refreshing experience, because for somebody with a hammer, everything is a nail, right? So that's amazing. What I wanted to actually spend today talking about, Sid, is this area that you have been working on for the last 6 months to a year, maybe.
It's been more than 6 months.
More than
I
6
think,
months?
Yeah.
More than 6 months. And the way I like to talk about it is, if you take community building and you mash it up with technology, it creates an interesting new convergence. So tell me why you picked this area, and tell me about this specific area of convergence itself.
So obviously when we started off with this venture, the founding members of the team, we wanted to do something around this idea of communities. But obviously we wanted to understand why should we do what we are trying to do, and what is that so pressing for us to do and think about something around communities, and then plug in technology and UX around communities and all of that. And then we figured out that there is this element of detached attachment, so to say, which the consumers don't get nowadays. And when I say consumers, I'm talking about people residing in societies within gated communities, people beyond gated communities, people who are online shopping, offline shopping, all sorts of consumers, right? They want to be part of a societal engagement, part of a community, but they want an engagement which also gives them a lot of freedom and a lot of privacy as well.
So the detached attachment is engagement with the right amount of kind of independence?
Yes. So it is engaging with like-minded people in the first place. So that engagement is a nuanced
engagement on my terms.
Yes, absolutely. On your terms, where you really don't want to be out in the open,
Interesting.
sort of thing. And at the same time, when you want to detach yourself from it, you should be in a position to be as comfortable as ever. And that's the magic formula, which is
really interesting.
Yeah, and that's something which is missing today in every society. If you go and see, you would see that there are multiple WhatsApp groups and Facebook groups and this groups and that group, where most of the people are not allowed to talk because they end up fighting with each other. They end up having conflicts.
And a few people dominate the conversation.
Few people dominate conversations. There are admins who are, more than just admins and moderators, and that's how it's been, and that's the level of maturity.
So the problem you were trying to solve, Sid, is you're saying community building is broken.
Yeah, it's broken, and it's almost like one size fits all sort of a thing. So if you want to be part of the society, you have to fit into the society community. It's not really made for you, but that's all that it is. And you have to simply go and fit yourself in. Whether it's a seamless fit or not is not taken into account. And that is where we thought it might be worthwhile for us to see what we can do out of it, because that was, and our primary and secondary research into segments within at least this geography told us very clearly that this is a huge potential.
So you're saying when I go live in a housing society, I don't really choose my community, the community chooses me. I mean, my neighbors are my neighbors. I can't really choose them, right? It's circumstance. Now, am I just forced to fit in, or can I have a platform that allows me to be myself and find the right kind of like-minded individuals?
Absolutely, and your preferences change, isn't it? Right?
So you're not just one type of person.
Yeah, when we started off doing personalization, when it started off as a concept, we were thinking of profiling people against a specific set of nuances.
Sure.
Right? It included transactional nuances, it includes behavioral nuances. What we didn't understand at that point in time is the fact that behaviors change. It changes every season, it changes every year, it changes over a catastrophic occurrence like that of COVID. It changes drastically. But obviously, that's not taken into account when you're talking about creating a personal space for someone to fit in seamlessly.
Why doesn't WhatsApp work in this area? I mean, many people would say, well, I have groups, I talk to my
WhatsApp obviously has great penetration. It's there everywhere, and we open WhatsApp almost every other minute, every other second. The way conversations are moderated in WhatsApp and the way you look forward to responding to messages in a WhatsApp scenario is very, very organic. And that can actually almost be very synonymous to the sinusoidal curve, right, that we have, which means that it takes off in a certain way, and when obviously there are lack of moderators and people who stand for the community, it dies off. And it happens all the time, right? Although they have launched WhatsApp for businesses and you can also endorse products and all of that, but the way the interactability happens, which is what we have been working with you guys as well to make it happen in our platform, it's very, very different to the one-dimensional nuance of WhatsApp. So I think it's not a question of why it doesn't work in WhatsApp. I think the purpose of WhatsApp was very, very different versus what we are trying to do.
So WhatsApp is just being retrofit to serve that purpose. It wasn't really built for that.
It's not probably to build around the definition of communities that we have picked up over the last 8-9 months as we have been working on this.
Tell me, Sid, the idea of a community, and obviously your solution aims at communities in India, but do you think there's a nuance to Indian communities, housing societies in India versus abroad? Like there's something really different and unique here?
Well, yes and no. Because, if I look at communities, it can actually cross across geographical and spatial boundaries. So you could have, say, a high fidelity community talking about audio equipments and speakers and all of that, which can transcend borders. In fact, I am part of a lot of such communities because I consider myself to be a stereophile. where there is a huge amount of richness in the way you exchange information. And we have people across many countries apart from where I live in, where you live in. That's different because that's interest based, and this actually triggers the conversation which will ultimately take you towards the fact that there could be communities of different types, right? So if you have something which is an interest based in nature, it can be cross spatial boundaries, whereas if you have culturally nuanced community, for instance the community around this thing of IPL which is happening,
sure,
that's a very nuanced subcontinent community that would be specific to this particular geography. And even within a city there could be a different nuance. For instance, in Bombay you would obviously have fan following and a huge base for Mumbai Indians. RCB surprisingly has fan base across India. So there are different nuances. There are different layers to the answer to the question which you asked me. So it could be across spatial boundaries, it could be across geographies, it could be within a geography. So it depends on the bucket within which you are thinking of creating that particular type of community, I would say.
Yeah. What are the challenges that you experience as you've gone about the process of
even conceptualizing the product? Since we have not yet launched that way. I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to answer that. In totality.
Yeah, so because the product is still yet to be launched.
But
whatever you can tell us, I guess.
I'll still try and answer that question to the extent possible. Well, this concept of just not creating a community, but how would you moderate a community? How would you engage in that community that you're creating? How would you monetize it? And how would you create a flywheel effect out of what you get out of a created community? Makes a complete circle, right? You can't really create a community and then start engaging and maybe try and monetize the community. And you might even get into a situation where you might feel that this is not working out. So you have to analyze the next step of what else you need to do to make it commercially viable. Maybe out of changing the way you interact and engage with the community, maybe the way you moderate the community, all of that can be subject to change. So this was a huge learning, and the research that we did and the way we tested out our products into sub-segments of people in various cities where we tried the beta version of our app gave us a lot of insights. It was also an opportunity in disguise to understand where we want to actually plug in and where does the market fit lies of the product that we are trying to build. So more than the challenge, I think, because this is a very, very new, fresh kind of a concept. So, and we are very different, as you said, to the WhatsApp of the world, which are very, very organic. That journey, I would say, was very enriching. And, there have been times where we hit a dead end almost, right?
That's the nature of innovation.
Yeah, and we went back to that quote of Bob Dylan, which says that there is no success like failure, and failure is no success at all. So whenever we actually, we were pressed hard, we took that as an opportunity in disguise for us to go the other route and try and do things in a different way. So that's been a real roller coaster ride, and a very enriching ride, and we both also kind of
I was part of
journey.
that ride with you, Sid, and it was a really enriching experience to craft that experience with you. Do you believe that this is still a relatively blue ocean, or do you think this is a very competitive space, that like the idea of community building in a housing society context using technology, is this a very crowded space?
The way we are thinking of building it, it's a very new concept where I don't really see a lot of competition in the way, at least what we are, thinking of, at least initially, right? If you think about it, everywhere, typically for brands, it's about building their own communities, right? You take any brand, as a matter of fact, let's take Royal Enfield for instance. It's a community that they are trying to build, and just not selling motorbikes and accessories around specific type of motorbikes. Any brand, any aggregator in today's date, they look for building communities, and that's where they get the maximum out of matrices like lifetime value and all of that. And we have all realized after doing a lot of digital and e-commerce in India that at the end of the day you have to deal with these two costs which haunts you all the time to make yourself profitable. One is obviously the cost of acquiring new customers, and secondly, how do you fulfill them at the end of the day, right? That's what makes your PC3 heavies, and that's what ultimately dents your EBITDA neutrality over a period of time. So from that perspective, I would say that we wanted to do something very different, and I don't think today there is this definition of communities which exist. But yes, I mean, all the brands at some stage and at some nuance is indirectly referring to building up their communities at various levels. It's existing. At the same time, the concept in which we have tried to dent the market is very new, right? So we don't see an immediate competition. However, I think what we need to wait and see is whether we get into a market, whether we get into a adaptability to start off with. Those are the challenges that we are looking at. It not really competition as a challenge.
So let's talk about the design challenge of it, right? We kind of crafted this together. What was some of those top principles for you around community building that you felt kind of really became kind of the foundation for the product, the experience you were trying to craft here?
I think before I answer this question, when we started off on the idea and all of that, whatever we are discussing on the why, we decided that it's going to be a design first organization, right? So with that in mind, what we started doing was we started ideating on the product. The product nuance came slightly after the design nuance. Which usually
which is very refreshing actually. It's usually the other way around.
It's obviously the other way around, because you start thinking on the product, and then the reason for this is obviously that it had to be so differentiated in the way you connect and essentially try and engage with individuals within a community, that it had to be designed in a certain way, and hence we started calling ourselves as a design first organization. Now on to your question of how different or how challenging or how it was differentiating, I think the entire concept was differentiating. For instance, let's talk about personalization. The way we thought about personalizing your preferred content, the way you as an individual participating in a community would like to see, would change, and it would change depending upon what do you want. It's almost as good as the volumetric which drives your power in an amplifier, how much power you want to give to your speakers so that you can play to its optimum capacity. It's almost as good as that, right? It's something which at least I have not seen, or I have not delivered, or have not come across anywhere else. So that was very, very different. The way we have used multimodal AI, for instance, to stream content, live content and recorded content, because community is all about interaction, influencers interacting with the community, individuals interacting, micro influencers interacting with others in the same community and stuff like that. So there's a lot of video content that we had to pull in and integrate within our templates that we designed, which meant that things were very, very different, things were very, very lucid, and there were interactability which were direct and interactability which was indirect, very subtle indirect interactability within the entire UX nuance that we had to get in, we had to actually put in as part of a design, which was very, very new, which I think we both would agree that it was one of a kind.
Absolutely.
So I mean, these are possibly some of the things I think we came across, which was very, very fresh, very, very nuanced.
So Sid, you talked about multimodal AI. We're at a point in the tech landscape where people put AI powered as a prefix, suffix to everything. You buy shaving equipment today, it's AI powered. You order something from Swiggy, it's AI powered. So tell me about the multimodal AI play in the community building tool or landscape. How it is not just riding on the buzz, but because I've been part of the journey, how it's a truly deeper approach to how to leverage that.
When we started hiring for this team, we were very specific into hiring people who have just not done machine learning, right? So we have been dealing with neural networking and computing around actual artificial intelligence. We hardly have solutions around the way you work with regressors, making a machine learn on a final outcome. That's not what we are actually doing. It's all about a lot of computer vision, where we try and understand what is being played in front of you and detail out the sentiments out of what people might be trying to tell you.
So for a non-techie, is it that you will have significantly more data points put in an engine to arrive at intelligent conclusions?
Yeah, it's much more subtle, but the basics mostly remains the same, because even in machine learning, what happens is your regressors ultimately define your y variable, which is the independent variable. So over here, for computer vision, it's obviously the quality of the media which is very important, which tells you elements of sensitivity and sentimentality, which has to be conveyed to the individuals within the communities when people are interchanging views and interacting with each other. It's very, very detailed.
Wow.
And it took a lot of time for us to master this, because I don't see it anywhere, at least in this landscape, in any of the digital
What do you
platforms.
mean by sentimentality?
As I said, for any community, you have to make sure that you understand the nuance of what you can visibly promote, what you cannot visibly promote and allow as part of the platform. And this is not WhatsApp, so it's not just textual material that you're looking at. You're looking at somebody who is talking to a set of individuals in a live platform when things are getting streamed online. You're talking about influencers talking to a set of people again for promoting a particular brand.
So various content types.
You can even film your own content and you can actually promote it in its various manifestations, the way you want to promote it. And people would react to it, right? So when people would react to it, it has to be moderated, right? And it has to be moderated in a way which augments the brand and it doesn't hurt it, or which augments the community, doesn't hurt it.
So how do you handle that narrative, is what you're saying?
Absolutely. How do you handle that narrative, and how do you build a sense of camaraderie at the end of the day, which brings about the happiness quotient, so to say. By the way, this is basically our North Star. So we want to make...
It's social engineering more than anything.
Absolutely. So, if you go back to the first question that you asked me about my career, and I tried to explain how it is business first, I can tell you here AI has been used very contextually to make people happy within the communities that they are trying to interact with. And I hope that it ultimately gives us that sense of...
So ultimate outcome is happy communities.
Absolutely, without any doubt. And obviously we want to monetize and make sure
so it's not just happy communities, but also happy brands. So tell me about this dichotomy of two types of user segments. So there's the brand on one end, that's your business customer, and there's the resident living in housing society on the other end. How do you balance those two here?
I think even if you look at the residents, right, they are also part of a home community. They're looking at essential services, they're looking at home services where facilities are involved, where amenity bookings are involved, etc. And you would be surprised to know that when we actually did our primary research on all of that, a lot of community angle came out of it, which had to be plugged in. There's a big community angle purely from a society perspective. We also kind of looked into the aspect of interest-based communities within the society. If you are interested into a certain nuanced perspective of food, wellness, nutrition, entertainment, name it, right? There's a huge need for getting into a community. Again, going back to that original explanation which I gave, which is around that detached
attachment.
So that's there. That's hugely there. The brands are no different, right? So the brands also want to make sure that they acquire customers and then they don't let them go.
Sure.
Cost of acquisition is expensive.
High,
and they want to ultimately enact all of that we explained otherwise for a society to a brand and the products and services which the brand stands for. If they acquire you by selling a product or a service, they want to stay with you, they want to make sure that they understand you better. If they have a upsell proposition, they can do it with you. If they have a cross-sell proposition, they can do it with you. And overall, for a platform like us, we kind of get a very good dynamic profiling of such kind of a customer, right? Who has the society community angle and the behaviors around it, and the brand products and services angle and the behavior around it. And then we can go back to the drawing board through a lot of AI and machine learning and all of that to understand what else we can sell that persona with. They seem to be mutually exclusive, but they are not. And they look
complementary.
They complement each other, and that's the reason when we started off doing this, we tried to come up with a definition of community which would sit very seamlessly with these two actors, so to say, in the entire.
So what is your definition?
Community, is a collection of individuals who are driven by similar interests, similar values, fostering connections within themselves for our overarching loyalty over a period of time. That is what we kind of, I think, at a high level look at from a community perspective. It could be B2B, it could be B2C, it could be organic communities, it could be just about anything. That's what we feel, which is very seamless to all the different types of actors in a use case.
So Sid, as you've been building this and you have a pretty large team now, many stakeholders, many opinions, I know what it's like to build a product. It's an adventure. You've been on that road many times. As the last question of this episode, a segment that we call Unpopular Opinion. Right? In this segment, I essentially ask you, what is the one fact that you keep stating in this journey of building this product that other people always disagree with you on?
Well, that's a tough one. I think there have been differences of opinions all the way in the right sense of the term, which has enriched the product.
Sure, yes.
First of all, I don't take them as, quote unquote differences, but alternate paths to achieve something which is, our commonality, which would ultimately give some numbers on the P&L board and so on.
Which is why we believe unpopular opinions are very important. Because if everybody had one opinion,
absolutely,
then it's not worth it.
I can tell you one thing, this concept of creating communities, as you know, organically doesn't work everywhere, right? So you create WhatsApp groups and it meanders off unless there is a moderation done in a certain way, which has a cost involved in it, right? I'm not sure whether this was a disagreement, but we needed to be very clear on the cost factor of how we can look at being cost efficient at the same time deliver what we are trying to discuss for the last.
This is definitely a hard problem to crack. So
and we are very cost conscious. Part of a big P group, we always look at cost first before we try and solve a problem in a room, which is having multimodal AI and UX and this and that. So we had to challenge ourselves, and we had to come to terms when it comes to a calculated cost factor analysis, which gave us a lot of confidence, wherein we faced with a lot of alternate views and alternate strategies, and we ultimately disagreed but committed after a certain point in time that this is what our heart lies and this is what we want to do. We want the market to define our mission and vision, which is why we have kept our mission and vision open.
Wow.
We will go there, we will define that over a period of time. But
so interesting.
Yeah,
I think some companies state that down in stone and it becomes dogma.
Well, it's dangerous to do that upfront.
Yeah.
So we want to kind of take it through a path which is laden with intellectual honesty, which we would want to embrace as much as possible, and this will happen when we hit the market. And I believe this would ultimately give us the vision over a period of time.
Wow, that's amazing. I meet so many people from the startup world, right? Somebody's trying to disrupt travel, somebody's trying to disrupt fitness, somebody's trying to disrupt healthcare. When I met you, you said I want to disrupt communities. And I think the idea of a community is such a core atomic building block to the idea of the human condition that I'm still fascinated by the idea of disrupting the way a human community gets built. So I wish you the very best on this journey. I'm really looking forward to the launch. I think that's in a few months.
Thank you so much.
And can't wait to see how the living experience of a resident changes when technology meets communities and the idea of what makes human beings happy.
Sure, I think we are also equally excited for the launch. And I also must compliment you for the wonderful experience that we all had working with you specifically on this particular project. And this is more than just a project. A lot of self-conviction was on the line when we started off working, and I can't thank you enough because you are one of the driving factors, to take this product forward. So
my pleasure. So it was an absolute
this
pleasure.
goes back to you as well.
Thank you, man. And I will see you soon on the tennis court.
Thank you.